Welcome to Virteva's Let's Talk Roadmap Rundown, the show where we talk through the latest updates, enhancements, and features coming soon to Microsoft 365. It's Tuesday, August 13th. I'm Scott Ledwan, and on this week's edition of the Roadmap Rundown, I'll be talking to you about a new way for admins to migrate users from the classic to the newest version of Microsoft Outlook. Teams meetings breakout rooms are finally getting a much requested feature. Defender for Office 365 is getting an improved bulk senders email management tool. There's two big changes coming to Microsoft Copilot in Microsoft Edge. And lastly, we'll talk about Purview AI Hub and the new role assignments it's getting as it closes in on general availability as we get closer to the fall. Before I get into the news for the week, though, I'd like to take a moment to please ask you to hit those like, subscribe, and share buttons to help our channel grow and get our message out to more people. We recently passed 500 subscribers, and it would be awesome if we could hit 1,000 by the end of the year. So for those of you that have already subscribed to the channel, thank you so much. It's really making a difference. Okay, let's get into the news for the week. So our first posting today is Message Center ID MC854648. And this is a new admin policy that's coming to help migrate users from the classic version of Outlook to the new Outlook for Windows. So the first thing you're probably asking yourself listening to this is, well, we don't want to switch to the new version of Outlook. And I think that Microsoft, understands this, and this is a more early approach to that migration. So for some organizations, especially the smaller ones that aren't using some of the more advanced features in Microsoft Outlook, that can move now rather than have to hold out for all the features and functionality in the classic version of Outlook to move over to the new version. I think that this makes sense. And this is a good tool to put in place early to help organizations adopt and push users into that without having to kind of go through a more advanced or tedious exercise of uninstalling the old version of Outlook, reinstalling the new version of Outlook, and then asking everyone to log back in. So this is, again, it just makes it a little bit easier. There is admin action required on this item, but there's no real timetable associated with it. So as is today, the admin migration tool for the new Outlook, or rather the policy, is allowing users to do those migration steps, but there's nothing that we're really waiting on here. This is already something that's been released and is available. So this tool will begin rolling out mid-August, which is basically right now, and it's expected to complete by mid-August to late August. So just really quick, taking a look at what this does from a user experience point of view is there's a couple of different screenshots and steps that'll happen once you go in and you enable this policy through a series of administrative steps. But the first phase of this migration is in step one, users will get a pop-up that basically encourages them to try the new Outlook by flipping that slider bar up in the top right. Many users have probably already seen that today and switched back and forth to try it out. Under step two, if you decide that you're not going to hit that button yet, you close Outlook for the day, you come in the next day, you reopen it, then you're going to kind of get one of those yellow informational banners that shows up at the top of Outlook. You have the ability to click switch now. It'll switch you over. It'll build out that initial kind of app data profile for you. And then if you decide to stay, there's nothing more that you need to do. If you decide that you're still not ready after the next closing of Outlook and opening of Outlook, you'll see kind of a prompt show up. Microsoft calls it a blocking prompt, which I'm not sure if that's the best way to call it. Not necessarily a technical, but from a customer perspective, because you're really not trying to block them. But it's letting the user know that the organization has installed the new version of Outlook. It's ready for them. They can switch now. They can switch next time. If again they don't switch, it will try and push them into the new Outlook. Now, the big benefit here is, from an admin perspective, is it's getting the application installed on the workstations or on the virtual machines, wherever you may have your end users working. At any point in time, the user can still opt to switch back to classic Outlook. This is really just about getting the footprint for the new Outlook into that user's app data folder so that they're ready to use it when they are ready to switch, whether that be they want to go back and forth and try out the new features, or whether that be they want to wait until, the very end of the timeline, which again, it's been established that the timeline for the new Outlook taking over for classic Outlook probably isn't going to be until 2027, 2028, maybe even a little bit longer than that. But again, this Message Center post here is really just talking about that there is a new tool available out there for you. Again, you do have to do some policy changes to actually make these settings change. It involves changing some registry keys and then pushing those out to the users ahead of time. But if you're more interested in getting your users or getting this policy out to more users, this will be available in the show notes so that you can see the exact things that you need to do to enable that through a group policy object. All right, switching over from Microsoft Outlook to Microsoft Teams, this one we're taking a look at Message Center ID MC854652 or Roadmap ID 121269. This has been a long requested feature in Microsoft Teams related to breakout rooms. So starting in late September and expected to be completed by late November, is breakout rooms are finally going to give you the functionality to, as a meeting organizer, not only create randomized breakout rooms, but it's going to give the audience of your meeting the ability to change what room they're in. So if you're in a large meeting and you create 5 breakout rooms, but you have someone that ended up in room 5, but they want to go hang out with their friend in room 3, is currently there's no way that you can actually move out of your own breakout room. With this new feature that's coming, is you'll be able to get put into a room and then you'll have the ability to click join to change the room that you're in. Overall, I think that this is a good feature. Again, this has been a long requested feature. Breakout rooms is really something that I feel like gained a lot of traction with Zoom meetings during the pandemic. Microsoft was a little bit late to the party with breakout rooms being added to Teams. It certainly was not a launch feature, or really even a couple of years after launch feature, but it did find its way there. I think this is a big win for customers, especially those that are using breakout rooms in Teams today. And for those that maybe you bounced off of it, maybe by the end of the year, this will be a good encouragement for you to go back and check that feature out again in the future. Message Center ID MC856754. We're going to be moving over and talking about some more administrative functions again, specifically around Microsoft Defender for Office 365 and a new feature that's coming to help optimize the bulk senders list and really provide more insight around how to optimize bulk email management for enterprises. So today, you kind of have the option when you're working with the bulk senders list and working with just bulk email in general of going in and kind of moving that slider bar in the direction of bulk email threshold. And we generally recommend most organizations stay around a 7. If you get a little bit too high, you start blocking emails that you actually want to come in. If you go too far in the other direction, then way too much kind of like email spam phishing starts to get into the organization. And then that creates a whole nother set of problems for your end users, not only in terms of noise, but also in terms of the ability that they may end up clicking on a malicious link through a phishing email or get redirected or get confused. So the way that this feature looks, at least in its current iteration, and this may change, is you have the ability to kind of go into this new bulk senders insights area, take a look at where your current thresholds are set, and then you can adjust that threshold at a simulation level, and then it kind of gives you a preview of what you can expect. And again, when we work with a lot of customers, is we generally tell them to stick around a 7. 6 is generally the lowest we would want them to try and go. But this gives you the ability to kind of, not only as a managed service provider like Virteva ourselves, but as a customer, if you're using the product, you can kind of go in and fiddle with those settings without actually fiddling with them in production. So this gives you a better idea of what things would look like, and then you can kind of run some metrics and overall exports for reports on that simulation and share with either a customer you're managing or share internally with your own IT department or maybe upper management that's asking you to make changes to the bulk email policy. So overall, I think that this is a great change. It's something that previously didn't exist in Defender for Office. And this is going to add just more flexibility and more power to organizations that have those E3, those E5 licenses, or even those business licenses that do a lot today with Microsoft Defender for Office for email management. This feature is going to be rolling out mid-August, so right about now, and it should be available to most organizations by the middle of September, end of September, if things move a little bit slow. So looking forward to this one and testing it out in theory and in practice in our own environments outside of our demo tenants. And we'll be happy to report back on this with how we think it works out. So the next two message center updates we have are kind of tied together. They're both around Microsoft Copilot's usage in Microsoft Edge. And I kind of go back and forth on both of these because if you look at them from one angle, is Microsoft removing features purposefully from the Edge browser because either they're being overused and it's costing them in terms of resources, or the other side of it is, are they trying to just refine the user experience, which I initially kind of weighed in on the former, and now I'm kind of more thinking that this just really is a change that they're making to try and make it easier for Copilot users to find what they're looking for and integrate it more directly into either the apps they're using most, or we'll see in the next Message Center update, the apps that just need more general integration and less of kind of like a side load. So the first one we're taking a look at here is MC853228. Copilot in the Microsoft Edge mobile application is being retired for Entra ID users. So Entra ID users is generally going to be businesses, enterprises. We're not just talking about personal Microsoft accounts. We're really, again, we're more aiming at that commercial sector. So if you're currently using the Edge mobile app and you're an Entra ID user, what you're probably used to seeing when you open up your Edge browser on your phone is there's a big blue Copilot icon at the bottom of the screen, generally right in the center. And you could use this to open up Copilot, interact with it, summarize the page, etc. I've actually gotten the update at this point, so I'll hold my phone up here. You can see that that blue icon has kind of been removed at this point. And what Microsoft's intention here is they want you to move over to the Microsoft 365 app. Now you can see as I just switched my profile over and I hold my phone back up, so this is my personal Microsoft account. You can see that that Copilot button is back there. Same web page, same interaction. Just again, they're trying to push, I believe, Microsoft 365 Entra ID users into using that Microsoft 365 app. The big reason for that is they want you to be able to quickly access your work files, your work conversations, emails, etc., all in the same place rather than have it directly in the Edge app. The Message Center posting here doesn't go into a ton of detail about the reason why they're making this change outside of just, hey, we want you to do it here rather than there. I'm going to make a base level assumption that they are making this change because maybe there was some data exfiltration concerns around what was being done with Copilot in the Edge browser. Maybe it had something to do with multiple profiles. Maybe it had concern to do in the customer community about MAM policies or a lack of MAM policies. But they're making this change. This is something that we just wanted to make sure that you were aware of. Again, it's hard to weigh in on if this is a good change or a bad change. It never feels good to have something and then have it taken away from you, but they are providing the alternative of using the Microsoft 365 mobile app for work and web chat instead of using it directly in Edge. Now, that's not to say that you couldn't just go to copilot.microsoft.com, log in with your work account and use it as is there. There's just not going to be that blue Copilot button at the bottom of the screen as of, it looks like, late August to probably early to mid-September. So again, we're going to kind of continue the conversations with Message Center 851615 about things being taken away from Edge. So the Compose box in Microsoft Edge's sidebar is being retired. So the Compose feature in Microsoft Edge today in the business sidebar is being retired in late August. This is again going to affect Entra ID users. This Message Center post does not say how it's going to affect personal Microsoft accounts, which if you're using Copilot Pro or you're just using the free version of Copilot, is it doesn't really give us a heads up. Is this getting pulled out for them as well? But just something to be aware of that starting in late August, if you were used to using that Compose feature from the Edge sidebars, it's going to get retired. If you haven't used the Edge sidebar before, is you hit that blue button in the top of Edge. And again, we're talking about the desktop app here. And you would get a little pop-up box that you can kind of see on the screen here that shows you a chat and a compose button. If you went over to compose, you could write something directly in that box. You could change the tone, you could change the formatting, you could change the length and generate a draft directly there. This is all functionality that is inherently available at copilot.microsoft.com. And if you're a Microsoft 365 Copilot user, a Copilot for Microsoft 365 user today, and you have that license, you can do those same things in Microsoft Word. You can do the same thing in Microsoft Outlook. And again, you can kind of do the same thing at copilot.microsoft.com. So this feature is going to start getting pulled out right around the same time the previous feature that we talked about, the removal of the Copilot button for entry users in the mobile app. Again, they don't really give a whole lot of information about why they're making this change. It could be that it's being overused. It could be that the telemetry is showing that it's being underused. At the end of the day, the functionality of actually being able to do these things isn't being removed from Copilot. It's just going to be featured and fleshed out a little bit differently. So this is something from a communication standpoint at your company, either IT, marketing, communications, that you're going to want to make sure that your users are aware of, because if they're using this on an everyday basis today and it hits a week after Labor Day, they go to touch it, it may not be there anymore, and it's going to leave them confused and wondering what happened. So get out in front of that. This is, again, the reason why we do these clips and these different Message Center announcements on the show, is to make sure that your teams are aware and that you can get in front of this stuff before it happens. So be prepared for both the mobile app change and the Edge sidebar change. Those are coming pretty rapidly within the next like 3 to 4 weeks here. So be prepared. Last announcement up here today is Message Center ID 847878, roadmap ID 408542. And this is Microsoft Purview AI Hub, which we talked about on Let's Talk podcast about probably 3 to 4 months ago when we had Todd Strand on. And this is getting an update to enable new roles to access AI Hub. If you're unfamiliar with AI Hub it is a new area in Purview, specifically kind of dedicated to generative AI usage within your environment. These new roles in the Purview AI Hub will be available to Microsoft E5 or compliant E5 license holders. Another thing that we kind of predicted back on that show is that while this was in preview, anyone would have access to it, but it would most likely end up kind of getting walled behind that E5 license, which is a bit of a bummer, but not hard to see coming when a lot of those similar functions, such as Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, is also behind that E5 paywall. So for tenants that are using this, what you will see as this changes and gets updated during the rollout period of mid-November to late November is there will be some new roles that you can assign to people that you want to have access to AI Hub. Right now, the only one that can really see AI Hub is the Microsoft Entra Global Admin role or the Microsoft Entra Compliance Administrator role. These permission sets are not going to change once the new permissions roll out. After the rollout, you'll have the ability to assign 2 different roles that will have access to AI Hub, being Microsoft Purview Compliance Administrator or the Microsoft Purview Security Reader role. So really, this is just expanding out the ability to see what's going on in AI Hub without having to give more wide-ranging permissions to users that may be interested in it. So you may want to give that reader role to somebody on your compliance or your security teams to keep an eye on stuff, rather than having to give them a full-on global administrator role, or giving somebody maybe in your security department access to the Entra compliance administration role. So again, this is really just giving you a little bit more flexibility in how you do your role assignments, especially when we look at zero trust and role-based access and how that all works. This is just, again, it's just expanding out the ability to take a peek into AI Hub without overexposing sensitive data. All right, well, that's about going to do it. So thank you again for tuning into the show this week. Again, Holly had to cancel a little last minute, so we had a little bit of a delay getting the recording done today. This is going to be a little bit shorter of a show this week because it was just me, but we've been seeing good momentum on the channel, and we wanted to make sure that we still got it done. So if there were any announcements today, specifically probably that first one that had some group policy object creation involved that you wanted to dig in a little bit further to, we'll make sure that those notes get into the show notes so that you can check that stuff out a little bit more deeply. And always, if there is something that your organization is interested in with Microsoft 365 because you're already using it, or you're just playing around with maybe getting more into a specific feature or investing into Microsoft 365 from another platform, and you need help implementing or managing those different services, Virteva can help with that. You can contact us by emailing us at letstalk@virteva.com or by visiting our website at www.virteva.com. Quick update for next show is we will be taking a week off next week. Planning on coming back, doing a show at the end of August, right before Labor Day, though that one's going to be a little bit up in the air just because we get closer to the holiday. However, we will be off the week of Labor Day and then coming back at September. So again, we plan to be back in 2 weeks for our next show and then coming back the week after Labor Day. And then we'll have some more news and announcements for you. Thanks again for sticking around all the way to the end of the video. And if you haven't already, please hit those like, subscribe, and share buttons. It's really helping us grow the channel. Take it easy. Have a great one. Bye.